Hey, what's going on, guys? Bflattened here with a brand new video today and a brand new series today. We're going to be talking about the Baldur's Gate 3 honor mode run, how to clear it, how to pass it, just a few tips and tricks on areas and bosses, team setups, and more. So, of course, in any sort of Baldur's Gate run, we're going to be doing a team building and also character selection. Now, I actually have not cleared honor mode yet. At the time of this recording, I'm at Gauntlet of Shar. I'm about 30 hours alive, so I at least know Act 1 and most of Act 2 very, very well, but I am confident that by the time this series goes out, that honor mode will be completed by what I'm doing here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do a new game in Tactician mode, and I know it's not honor mode, but the difficulty is fairly the same. And also, the only thing that's missing is legendary actions, which I will go over. The only reason why I'm doing it in Tactician mode is so that I can explain things a little bit easier, as well as I don't actually know if I can run two honor modes at the same time. So, let's go ahead and rock some Tactician. Whenever I go through streams, I'm going to also put in some footage into places where it's appropriate as well. So don't worry, I will be including as much as I can for honor mode. I do recommend having tactician mode completed before going into honor mode because, again, the difficulty is fairly the same. There's only a few differences between honor mode and tactician mode, one being the legendary actions. So let's just get right into it, shall we? We have our character. Now, when I first started doing this, I thought, why not have a druid? Druid are incredible because they get an extra health bar technically with wild shape. You get full hit points with whichever character you want to transform into, whether it be like a spider or a bear, and it doesn't affect your druid's HP at all. So I thought that's got to be absolutely overpowered in honor mode. And it's actually very good in the first couple of levels. So we're going to go ahead and actually do that. We're going to pick our druid for the start. The only reason why is because, again, you get that extra health bar, and it's actually quite nice because the first couple of levels are brutal. I personally think that Act 1 is actually the hardest act. I haven't done Act 3, obviously, but in Act 3, you have options to get your butt to safety. Act 2 is kind of just linear and is kind of very straightforward, but Act 1, you don't really have a lot of options, and there's also a lot of really tough fights in Act 1. So Act 1 is what we're going to have to focus on really, really hard so that we can get into those later acts and be okay. So we're going to have an Origin custom, and we're going to go with Druid for the first couple of levels so we can have Wild Shape so that we can protect our HP on our main character a little bit easier. Now, race, it does actually quite play a lot of significance into what race you play. Now, the thing that you have to know about honor mode and even tactician mode is that we're going for efficiency. Efficiency means where we're going to get XP the most, avoid fights that will kill us, avoid fights in general, saving our short and long rest for when we absolutely need them, that sort of thing. And there's only one race that really steps out in Act 1 that we can do efficiency the most, and that's Drow. Now, the reason why is because Drow have multiple different things attached to them in their race features. They get some pretty decent proficiencies, which we will actually be using later on with a couple of nice swords. They have superior dark vision. You can see further in the dark, which is great for so you don't get ambushed or surprised, or you can see creatures in front of you a lot further away, so you can avoid fights. Also, this is probably one of the biggest ones, is you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic cannot put you to sleep. So you avoid two things that could be quite detrimental to a main character. There is also one other thing that Drow can do that is not explained in the description. Goblins actually see Drow as royal beings, basically. And if you've never played Drow before, a lot of Act 1 is goblins. So you can actually avoid a lot of those fights if you don't want to take them, and you can challenge them later on when you definitely can sweep them off their feet, and so that you're never pressured. Goblins are not the most threatening creature. It's when there's 20 goblins and the goblin camp that will be very threatening. So we want to be able to avoid those fights as much as possible and take them when we are confident to take them in. So that really speaks volumes to the Drow being, I would say, the best tactician and or honor mode character that we could play as. Now there are two sub races. I like Seldarine, but it doesn't really matter too much. I like Seldarine just because I saw Seeking Allies and I thought that could be useful. It didn't really make that much of a difference. So class Druid, sub race, race. Now let's go ahead and go to our cantrips. Now there's a couple of really cool things that you can do with the Druid at level 1. I would recommend not taking Guidance, only because we're going to have Shadowheart on our team. I like whatever this is, that one. Shelliga, so you can make your magical weapon do bludgeoning damage. It is really good for the early level characters and enemies that we fight. Now, I don't mind resistance. You can make a target more resistant to effects and spells. We're going to be changing this primarily anyways. We're going to be rolling off of Druid later on once we get Withers. But these are pretty nice for early levels. I also like Guild Artisan because you get skills into Insight and Persuasion. Persuasion and anything Charisma based is going to be huge. That might spoil as to what we're going to be using Withers to change our character into later on. But Persuasion and Charisma based characters are going to be massive. Ideally, you like to go for a dedicated healer, a dedicated support, a bruiser slash tank, and some form of ranged character. So you can have Ranger Rogue, you can have Wizard, you can have Fighter Berserker, dedicated Cleric, and also things like a Bard. Those are really, really good to line up. Abilities. Now, I don't mind their intro abilities. However, they're not always going to be that accurate or amazing. Like, for example, Wisdom's at 17. I kind of like having everything dedicated to gaining an extra point into whatever is your primary stat. So I don't mind it being at 17, but at the same time, we don't get the +4 to it. So I'm not too keen on it. What we could do is we could take that down to a 16 because it's still going to be +3, and we can distribute those 2 points elsewhere to where it would be useful. Constitution actually isn't that bad because obviously it's HP and also saving throws, so we could actually toss that in there and make that a little bit nicer. Strength we're not going to be using too much on, so we can actually remove one of those points, and we can play around with Constitution a little bit more. But overall, these aren't going to be too bad. We could play around with a few of the stat point distributions. We can even go down to a -3 if we want to, or an 8 to the strength and take off 1 here and play around with that a little bit more. We could take the Constitution to a 16, gives us to a +3 Constitution check. An even number is going to be the one that's going to give you either a plus or a minus to whatever stat that is. Strength isn't going to be too crucial for us. Wisdom as a druid, going to be very good. Constitution, HP, pretty solid all around. We could change our skills that we're proficient in. Honestly, I would always go into things like survival. I would go into things that are like perception, deception, intimidation, because those are going to be useful in dialogue. And later on, we're going to be doing performance as Bard when we shift over to that. We can get up to a 2 here. I like the survival, and I don't mind. Honestly, we have mostly everything that we need. Let's take Arcana, I guess. Prepared spells. What we're going to take here is we're going to take for early levels, we're going to take Ice Knife. It does quite a good amount of damage. Healing Word is always nice because Healing Word is going to be distance-based, whereas Cure Wounds is going to be touch-based. So we want to have that distance just so we don't have to rely on that. Another one that's decent, Goodberry is honestly pretty decent. We're going to be using Goodberry quite often later on in the game. So Goodberry is actually pretty solid. And I think we're going to take Longstrider, because Longstrider is something that we're going to be using quite often later on too. So this is what we're going to start off with. We're going to do a Drow, Druid, Guild Artisan, and we're going to be using support spells and some damaging spells as well. But this is going to change soon as we progress into our team building. This is just our character building for now. And of course, we're going to change the name into Guide, so I actually remember what we are going to be doing with that later on. Future episodes, we're going to be doing area-based guides. We're going to be doing boss-specific guides. And also, we're going to build a team together later on once we unlock Withers and we have our full lineup. I hope this has been helpful as to where we're going to be directing this guide from, and I will see you guys in the next one in part 2. My name is Bflattened, and I'm signing on out of here. Take care, all. Laters.